You're listening to Politics on the Navajo Nation. Welcome, all of you listeners from throughout the internet world and to the Facebook listeners, to YouTube, and wherever you are. So, welcome again. This time, we're talking about we're going to take subject or actually office um, throughout the Navajo Nation and try to get clarification, try to find out what their job functions are, and that how they collaborate with the Navajo Nation, the government itself, as well as how it goes throughout the entire process from central to chapter to the the community. And so Akoshe, and I've invited, and I'm so grateful that they're here this evening from the Navajo Nation Ethics and I think I got that wrong. Did I spell it right? The Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office. Um, and I've got Felicia Williams, who is the interim director, and she's also an investigator as well. And Albert Benally, he's an investigator, and then Robert Jumbo. So welcome. And I would like to just go right into the interview because we are very limited on time. So could you take the next few minutes to describe, introduce yourself, clan, and then uh, we'll go right into describing what the office and functions are. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Nez, thank you for the invitation to provide the podcast to the listeners out there. My name is Felicia Williams. I am the interim director for the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office, and I am an investigator. My clans are Tobahen Nashlon, Twitchini Bushichin, Nakaidanan, Desha Chadom, my Deshkishi Dashanella, and I am have been with the office for a year now. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my colleagues.
Oh yeah, good evening everyone. Thank you, Mr. Nez, for hosting us. Che Robert Jumbo Inishia, Yodan and Islam, my education Bashichin, Taba Hadash Che, although there's two new Dashinala. Che, I've been with the office since December of 2025.
Hello, my name
Welcome.
is Albert Benally. I'm an investigator. I'm a Twitchini Kizatini Bashichin, and this is my fifth year with the office.
Okay. I'd like to have you guys introduce the office, the role, and its function within the Navajo Nation government.
For the listeners and for you, Mr. Nez, again, thank you for allowing us this time. The Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office, there is a purpose, and the intent for our office is to investigate administrative investigations concerning the government. Mainly, a lot of people know the office with the elected officials or appointees. We have a lot of cases that we investigate in that matter. We also extend the investigative process with the government with into the Title II, which is Navajo government law. We look into investigations into the Title III, which is land and grazing. Then you're looking into Title 11 with the elections office, and then Title 10, which is into the education school board members. Then you have your Title 26. So those are the administrative investigations that we have an overview on. And the other part that this extends out to are the Navajo Nation branches, such as the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branches. So those are what we have as far as what can be reported to our offices. We also have the I think just to give a broad overview of the extent of cases and entities that we work with, we have 110 chapters on the Navajo Nation. We also have over 60 school boards, and then we have the enterprises that we work with the Navajo Nation. So in the event that there is a complaint that comes in, we do handle the intakes, the complaints, the overview, and we also look to ensure that there are jurisdiction that we do have. So those are established when we do the beforehand. So I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add to this. So pretty much this is what we do with the Ethics and Rules Office. We handle the administrative investigations into these parts of the Navajo Nation governments.
Okay. Um, let's go back to what you just established. You said that your role, or actually you mentioned some titles. Can you just quickly tell the audience, rather than just saying title so and so, because we're not all familiar with the law, what are these titles and where that you fit within those titles?
Okay. Good evening. This is Robert Jumbo. As far as Title II, we do have our Navajo Nation Ethics and Government Law cited within the Title II, as well as our plan of operation, our current plan of operation with the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office. We also have the Garnishment Act of 2005 that's cited within Title II. But Title II is in regards to our whole current three-branch government of the Navajo Nation government. So you also find other offices in there, like the Office of the Vice President and President, Navajo Nation Council, Office of Hearings and Appeals, just to name a few there. And then in terms of the Title III, we also have mainly the land status, like regarding grazing permits, land, home site lease, and then primarily the main focus there tends to be in regards to the grazing officials, land boards, farm boards, depending on the region that we're in and the agency we're in on the Navajo Nation. And then as far as Title 10, that's mainly regarding education, the Department of Education, our school boards, based on the current apportionment plan that we do have in effect, which will be coming up within the next 2 years, that will be updated again in that regard. And then as far as Title 11, so right now we're dealing with an election year. So with Title 11, right now we're dealing with the 16 presidential candidates and a good number of council delegate candidates, as well as a few from the chapter level, like Kayenta Township. They have two elected positions up this year, and then the next 2 years will be the chapter elections. So in that regard, we look into what elected officials do we have that do come under our jurisdiction as far as the ethics and rules government. And then the Title 26 is mainly regarding the Navajo Nation Local Governance Act, which was in April of 1998. And to date, we only have 65 LGA certified, or 45 LGA certified chapters. Sorry about that. And the remaining 65 chapters are non-LGA certified chapters at this point in time.
Sorry, I had my phone off. Uh, so basically, let me just review. You cover the central government, legislative, judicial, and executive branch, 110 chapters, school boards, and the Navajo Nation Enterprise. And so you are the intake you also have your overview, and so basically the application of your job is establishing some sort of a jurisdiction exactly where your whether your role is applicable. Am I correct on that?
Hi, Gal. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So now let's go back into the history, because I think it's really, really important that we establish the foundation of who exactly is the office of the Navajo, or the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office. Do you have any idea when the office was established?
Hi, this is Felicia. The Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office was established in 1998.
Um, and what was the exactly the language that established, and why was it established?
The Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office was established because of to govern the Navajo Nation Council Delegates section, and that's the reason why we were established. But before that time, you had seen several presidential investigations that had gone before that, and I think that was the prominent part of why they began to seek this establishment of the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office.
Okay, so now, as far, I mean, I want to just establish this one foundation first, and I'm going to ask that question for you to deliver exactly what it is. Who exactly is the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office? So let's start off with the basics. Um, who is your employer?
The Navajo Nation, when you're looking at the organizational chart with Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office, we fall under the executive branch. And under the executive branch, you will have the organizational chart where the Navajo Nation, we fall under the legislative branch. So that's where it is. And having to go beyond that, it's going to be the speaker. Then we have our supervisor, which is going to be a director that's in place of that. Then you have the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office, where you have then established the administrative operations section, which is going to be, we do have the director's position. We have one presenting officer's position. We have 4 investigators in the office. We have an office aide, and we also have a senior office specialist. And that's how the organizational charts break down from the from the legislative branch.
Okay, so you you said at the beginning of your sentence, you said executive branch. Is it executive or legislative branch that you're under?
Okay, this is Robert Jumbo. Just for clarification, our Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules, we've always been under the legislative branch, just for that clarification.
Okay, so now you have as far as your connection, can you tell the people, like, there's your office, I'm trying to make these dots connect, how now we've established that you're under the legislative branch. So if a person comes in and files a complaint, uh, you said you're the intake, you go through the overview, you establish the jurisdiction, and where does it go from there?
Mr. Hernandez, this is Albert Benally, investigator.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
what our office is ethics and rules sending you. We are under the legislation, but we are independent from them. So the only thing the legislation branch is take care of our administrative uh, issues, like uh, our time sheets, that type of stuff, our leave sheets. But once an intake comes in, that intake solely belongs uh, uh, to the ethics and rules, because we don't have any influence from our legislation. They, like I said, they only take care of our administrative issues, but the actual work, it stays and established within our office. So all the intakes that's been filed, we deal with it. And what happens is once a paper has been submitted, an intake forms, front clerk person will establish it and put it in a folder and assign a number to it. It gets forwarded to our intern or the director, and she or he will review it and see if it is within our scope of work, that the rules that we have. Once that's established, it's good. And if something's not missing or something's lacking, or we needed to do more information from it, she or he will contact the intake form, the one that made submit the paperwork. Once that is established, then it will be reevaluated. And then we'll have a staff meeting every 2 weeks or so, and then it will get assigned to uh, investigator. Then for me as an investigator, when a case gets assigned to specifically me, what I do is I'll go ahead and review with the interim director, and then after that, I will contact the complainant and go over the details of that report or that intake that they filled out, because sometimes they don't cover all the information that we needed. So usually I tell them to write a picture for us. That way we understand what exactly the issues are. Then we go from there. Then the investigation commits.
Okay. Well, there's still the question that I asked at the beginning. Who is your employer in your opinion?
It comes back down to the Navajo Nation government and the three branches. When we come back down to the Ethics and Rules Office, we still have the legislative branch. There is, like Mr. Benally had said, the operational portion of it does still have to go through the processes as far as how the office is established and how we gain funding for our office. This is where we begin to work with the legislative branch, and the employers of the office is going to be the Navajo Nation. That's how we oversee the government entirely.
Okay. Uh, do you work? So you're telling me you work for the legislative branch / the Navajo Nation government, but not the Navajo people.
No, we do work for the Navajo Nation. It does fall under the Navajo Nation, the fundamental laws. So when you're looking at Title II, there is a section in there that brings into terms how an organizational chart looks as far as our culture, as far as the Navajo Nation law. It does have the organizational chart as the Diné people. So when we're talking about the Navajo Nation government, this is the information that comes down. But to establish the formal part of the government, this is what you're talking about when you're talking about the 3-branch government systems.
Okay.
And this is where it is. But yes, we do still serve the Navajo people. With our office, we do handle a lot of intakes from the community members, and this is how some of the intakes do come in. We handle a lot of the intakes that come in from community members. We have intakes that come in from perhaps programs. If we have the means of looking into the financial documentation investigations, these are something that we have pretty much have working in the office. So our investigations is not just a small, narrow picture of what we investigate. We have topics above topics above topics. So you can talk from standards of professional conduct of an appointee to a Navajo Nation program, or even a chapter that may have misappropriated funds, or we may be experiencing or investigating matters that are involving theft, meaning people are taking or employees are taking money from what their operational gains are, and they do it for personal benefits. So these are the types of cases that we investigate with our office.
Yeah. Well, let me just kind of interject something here so that I think that we can understand, because comparatively speaking, under the Division of Economic Development, there's an office that was established through legislative actions, and that's the Office of Business Regulatory. And that Business Regulatory Department, that was established by the Navajo Nation Council, and their job was to work on behalf of the Navajo people. And they were the enforcement mechanism to make sure that the Navajo Nation is in compliance with their procurement, purchasing, and bidding process. Now, the parallel between that office and, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding that the original legislation was much earlier than 1994. I think there's one time the office of the Ethics and Rules Office was one office, and then it was split. Am I correct on that? I think there's a date much earlier than that. I think by establishing the foundation of what the office is, then we can morph into a much deeper conversation, because I think we need to understand what exactly is the role of the office. So can you clarify when the office was established and when that split within the office happened?
Good evening, Mr. Nez again. This is Robert Jumbo. As far as that process, we are, since we are a little bit more recent staff, we are looking into that, actually researching the history of the Ethics and Rules Office. So that's one thing we are also trying to determine is how far back did this office start, because that's one of the things we're curious about ourselves. So as far as some stuff I looked up, I know there was some stuff referencing back to the early 80s, based on what I've seen. And of course, with the whole debacle that happened in 1989, I mean, that changed some stuff with the Ethics and Rules Office there as well. And then keep in mind, pre 2010, we had the 88 council delegates from 2010 back. And during that time, they had their various committees, and what the current committee setup is made of right now with the 24 council members. So as far as the 88 council members, at one point, well, during that time, we had the Ethics and Rules Committee. So with that Ethics and Rules Committee, that was a lot of something way different, and they were able to be more, I guess we can put it, more responsive in terms of getting these cases closed out in terms with the Ethics and Rules Office. So that's one thing that was established there. And then after 2010, the 24 membership, it just went, that committee just went away. So with that, now we're having to deal with the Office of Hearing and Appeal. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I understand it. And unfortunately, I don't have the information right in front of me. I had it, and then now I can't find it. But there was in 1984, I believe, and then there was a split. There was one office, and this is important because what happens after that is that it established the Office of Hearing and Appeals, and that split happened. What I'm trying to establish here for the general public so that you can share with me as you guys are the enforcement of uh the form or the oversight. And again, the reason why that I keep asking, who do you work for? Is it the government or is it the people? There's a very sharp, clear delineation between working for the government and working for the people. So can you, I mean, I still want to have you guys answer that because this is so important for people who are employed for various offices. You got to fully understand what your job and who it is that you're working for, exactly your job role.
Mr. Nez, this is Albert Benally.
Oh,
Uh, when we try to distinguish between the Navajo people and the Navajo government, our purpose is to serve and preserve the Navajo uh, government, the way it runs. So we all are uh, public servants. That's our main background. We're public servants. We're here to serve the public. And the public is the Navajo people, and that's our main goal
okay,
to address their needs and address their concerns. We might not be the answer to it, but we will try to focus and direct the people that comes knocks on our door,
okay,
and we try to help much as we can within our scope. And if they fall within our scope of rules, then but that the scope of rules, that's what governs us. And because you gotta have some laws that you need to work with, and that's what the council gives us. The council gave us these the titles and also the standard of conduct that governs the government, council members or employees of the Navajo Nation, because we do
okay,
extend some to the employees of the Navajo Nation due to
okay,
the standard of conduct. Like grandma comes in saying, "I've been mistreated so and so from someone office," then if it falls within our area, and we can assist grandma and see where it goes. But
yeah,
we do try to assist everybody because the caseload that we have, and also but we do try to find the time to help them. These are our walk-ins, and sometimes we fall behind our schedule with our caseloads because we're addressing somebody that came in, walked in, that we need to give them service. We can't just send them away again,
okay,
and that's the base of our office that we function under.
okay. Um, well, let me just kind of just get to the point. I think one of the things I'm trying to establish here, we spent a lot of time on it, but resolution under the Navajo Nation legislative branch, resolution CO 4512, under also Title 2 30 under section 3741, your role is specifically is to work to protect the Navajo people. That's what it says in the legislation. It's you work for the people. So, and that's where this split that I'm talking about. Uh, I think you're not working on behalf of the government. You're the government police. You're the governmental entity to police the Navajo Nation government. And that's a real, um, it seems to me like like based on a lot of the situation that I'm hearing, uh, I think that needs to be really clearly distinguished. So now, um, what is your feelings like after it, well, let's walk through the life cycle of a complaint. A citizen files a grievance. Tell me the step by step how you decide if it proceeds or dies.
Hi, this is Felicia. With the cycle of the intake, when we do have anyone to come to the office and file the intake, we do have our investigators who are assigned weekly. We have a change in assignments weekly for this because of the amount of work that comes in, the amount of cases that we're handling right now. We designate one investigator for that entire week to handle all the intakes, just so that we get them heard. And then, just as Albert had explained earlier, we begin to do the preliminary. So we handle a lot of the gathering of the documentation if necessary. Then you have the processes where you're submitting the entire packet for the overview for the director of ethics and rules. And in this case, it'll be the interim director. And we review what's needed. We look at the titles that we had mentioned that we work with. So that's going to be the boundaries of the jurisdictions. And then we begin to look at the allegations. For the submitted allegations, we have to determine, does it meet the ethics and government law? So let's say in this case it does, we move the process forward. Again, it's just the preliminary stages. There may be parts or terms or times where we're going to have to request for more documentation. So when we get the documentation, then we move the process through forward. It gets a case assigned number. We use in case, let me give you a sample where it says ERO-001, and it'll be for the year of 2026. So that's how we begin to formulate this official case. Then we do the assignments of the cases. It goes to the assigned investigators. We ensure that the investigators are aware of what it's going to be, what the allegations are, and what we're going to be seeking. So when you're talking about an administrative investigation, we're looking at as narrow and specifically as how the allegations are cited in there. So that's where a lot of the one-on-one happens with the complainant and with the investigators, just like what Mr. Benally brought up, a lot of the follow-ups, the questions to the details. In terms of reviewing some of these intakes, sometimes it doesn't clearly have that. So it does require some follow-up and, like I said, one-on-one. But when we begin to do that, then we formulate the allegations. We send what we look at as due process. We have to send a letter to the respondent in the cases. So respondent in the cases, we just simply say, you've been notified with the investigation. This is the allegations, and we would like to begin to formulate some scheduling of appointments so that way we can bring the person in. If they have documentation or anything to share with us as far as the processes of what they're alleged of, then they're welcome to submit these things. So we offer these types of communications. Eventually it comes to the point where the investigation gets put together. We then begin to look at the facts and the findings. If we have enough to sustain the allegations, then the case will be classified sustained. Now, we do have some cases where they may not have not enough evidence to sustain the case, or we have evidence to sustain a case, but it will clear the individuals. Those are the types of cases that we're encountering. Right now, what we're seeing as far as the investigations go, we do have, some topics that we have formulated out of this over the past year that I've been there. We begin to identify what it is, but that's the life cycle of the cases. We do have a time statute on these cases when they do get submitted to the office, and we have about 5 years onward from the date that we receive the cases or the intake complaint file. So we move on it timely, and as I said, it does take time when you're having to deal with programs, entities, or individuals. We ask that they submit these documents. So we do put some deadlines on these notifications just so that we're moving the investigative process in a timely manner. So these are the life cycles that you're taking with the investigative files.
So after, let's say you've gathered all the information concerning a case, what happens after that?
If we gather all the documentation, like I said, it depends on if we have to go out, do the interviews with witnesses, gather further documentation. Again, it's going to be narrow and specific to the allegations. So a lot of the intakes can deal from a span of one date, time incident. We've had some cases where we've had different dates, times of incidences. We have to follow up into these dates, find out what was going on, who were all involved. So that way, you know that we've done the benefit of actually handling the full investigation. So we don't bring it to at least 25% and say we have enough here. In our course of the investigative process, we have to have a clear and concise facts of the cases before we even begin to formulate this process. And then when we're closing out these cases, this is where we begin to have it. So it's not just the investigator saying we're going to close it out. It then goes to the director, and the director is going to have to look at whether or not the classifications have been precisely classified. So that way, we're doing our due diligence with the investigation, and we've gathered what we needed, and that they see that we interviewed the witnesses that have been brought forth into the complaint processes. And that's where we're at with it.
Sorry, you said that an intake happens, and the Navajo, the Navajo, your office accepts the paperwork. Does it go directly to the investigator, and then it goes to the director after the investigation, or does it go to the director and then you make the assignment to the investigators?
So when the intake does come in, because we already have the complainant there at the office, we take time to sit down with them, and then we'll clarify their statement. So at that point in time, we may put them on official record, meaning that we're recording the statements and that they understand. There is a process where we sit down or with them, with the complainants, and we explain the processes as well, just so that they understand it. We do tell them that they're welcome to give us a call to follow up on the cases. But once the investigator gets what they need, and let's say the complainant that day comes in with maybe a binder full of information, and they tell us we need this one copied, this is the original, those are the types of intake that we handled at that point. So they're pretty much sitting down with an investigator at that point. And it's just the first time consultation that we will have with the complainants on the intakes. And then when it goes down to the interim, or when it comes down to the director, they will look at what we have. Like I said, that we have to establish a jurisdiction. We have to understand what the allegations are and whether or not it falls under ethics and rules.
Okay.
And then we will begin to sit down, and it officially gets assigned to one of the investigators. So with that, a lot of the documentation, the recordings of the files gets transferred back into the files, just so that it's
Okay.
contained within one file.
Yeah. Let's speaking of investigators, let's now, okay, I want to talk because I think all of you are investigators. I want you to give me a sample of what it is based on this principle. There's a concept applicable to law, and that is the letter of the law and the principle of the law. Under which premises do you guys use to be able to merit what moves forward and what doesn't? Go ahead. Hello?
Mr. Nez, can you repeat that question again?
Okay. Let's say under the law or an application concept of law, you either operate under the principle of the law or the letter of the law. Which one of those do you use to be able to access what merits a full intake and full investigation?
Hi, Mr. Nez, this is Felicia. When it comes down to the merits of these types of intakes and having to distinguish what is going to be moving forward and distinguish what could be referred, these are processes that we look at. When you're talking about the principle of something, you're looking at what is a process, what are the procedures and policies. When you're talking about the letter of the law, this is when you're looking at an intake and you're looking at what type of allegations do we have to follow and do we have the jurisdiction. And in this case and similar cases, we have over, right now today we have 149 cases, and I believe we've only, from my opinion, we've referred back 8 cases so far to the Navajo Nation branch. This was only because we were available to offer the technical assistance. And in this case, they pretty much just said they were going to handle the administrative personnel processes. But a lot of the cases were launched with our office. And I think that was just in terms of when you're talking about technical assistance, because we've received it at our office, we still have to hold some type of accountability on these types of reports that are being made to our office. So at this time, for
What do you
these
mean?
particular
What do you mean
cases,
accountability? Your accountability, the accused and intake accountability. Who accountability?
I'm just giving this as an example, we had some employees under the executive branch that have launched complaints into our office. And we, as our office, understand that there is a Navajo Nation Department of Personnel Management. And under that Navajo Nation Department of Personnel Management, they also have the ability to launch the investigations when there are complaints being received in their Navajo Nation programs or divisions. So this is what we mean. All we're doing is, because Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules has received these types of cases, and when we reach out to the programs and we extend and offer the information, we pretty much just allow them the process. And whether or not they decide, we take on technical assistance processes and offer our investigative help, or they would say, we're going to go ahead and handle this matter. All in this cases that happens with these types of scenarios is that all we need to ensure on our end, because we're ethics and rules, we just want to ensure that the complainant's cases are moving forward somewhere with the administrative investigation. And that's why we say we have to ensure that this is done. Their accountability is there, and we have to account our processes in the best interest of the Navajo Nation, and that goes
Okay.
down and to the
All
complainants too.
right.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that clarifies it.
Yeah. Okay. So now I think, you're explaining the process, but then again, I'm trying to get to the point about what you guys use. Is it a checkoff list? Is it your own moral judgment? Is it strictly based on technicality, or is it based on Navajo culture? What do you base your opinion on? Because every investigator is going to have to make a choice whether or not these cases move forward or don't move forward. What do you use? What's your guidance system?
Again, Mr. Naz, on this one here, we do have our ethics and government law. When we're looking at this, we sit down. It's not like we dismiss a lot of the cases. More likely, these cases are still moving forward through the processes. And when we're talking about this, we have to gather all the documentation. So even a simple intake can at least take maybe a timeline of 3 weeks, just so that we have everything moving together and that we have it compiled, just so that we can make that decision. And no, it's not a sole decision. We have to ensure that we're following. We also have our title laws that we have to ensure that we're moving these things through, and we also have our
Right,
ethics and government law, where
right,
you have we have significant amount of titles. But no, it's not a sole decision. And when we're making these processes on our investigative cases, we're gathering factual evidence at this time,
right.
perhaps maybe witness statements, eyewitness accounts to the incident, or even the agenda minutes or any type of other documentation. That's why we move through the investigative processes.
Well, I think one of the things, because we're running out of time right now, because I'm just going to get to one situation. It all involves money. In every case that I've known, it involves money. Majority of the time, probably about 80%. When it comes to that, money is money is money. Theft is theft is theft. Embezzlement is embezzlement. I don't care what anybody says. If there's money missing, somebody says. But here's the problem. So many people out there said they have reported to your office. And even though there is like, it's right there, here's the check, here's this, something stopped the process and the whole case was dropped, dismissed. How did that happen?
When it comes down to the financial processes, Mr. Nez, as you heard in the or in our introduction, I've been here at the office for about a year. Mr. Jumbo has been here for about 6 months, and Mr. Benally about five years. When I haven't heard of cases like this, but we do have cases where they have been heard in. Let me give this one here first. When we get done with a case file, and the investigation shows that we have sustained the facts of the cases, and in terms of your question, if it was a financial investigation,
Mhm.
then we will begin to file. And in our court, we file with the Hearings and Appeals Office, and we do have a hearing officer. And we present the case, obviously. At this point, you would have your respondents and their defense attorney in the
Yeah.
same hearing. So this is where we begin to look at the facts and establish it. But when we do present what we have there, it is then determined by the hearing officer what happens with the outcome of the cases. So they begin to
Uh,
look
you're
at their
now telling
formal judgment.
you're now you're now telling me that you guys have hearing officers.
Yes, we have a hearing officer, one with
What?
hearings and appeals,
Well,
which is under the, yes,
that's a
hearings and
different office.
appeals is under the Navajo Nation executive branch.
Okay,
So they
right
handle.
there, right there, I'm seeing a problem, and I want to have you help us understand how that problem. Maybe it's not a problem, but I see it as a lot of people are. I'm thinking because just talking about it, you're saying your office is under legislative, and that office was split to form the office of hearings and appeal, and that hearing and appeal is under the executive branch. Legislative intake paper comes in, you move it on, it goes to uh, office of hearings and appeal. Now you got two different branches, the same process. How do you guys navigate through that?
So just to give you a little bit of information about, you continue to relate back to the split. There was a time with our ethics and rules office where there was an actual ethics and rules committee. This committee was consistent of our legislative delegates at that time. They did serve on the committee, so we would have constant hearings on some of these cases and matters. And the split, we this is something that we're beginning to research, but the where you see the change in the function here with when we're talking about the Ethics and Rules Committee and the Hearings and Appeals Office under the executive branch. This happened because of the breakdown of the legislative branch with the council delegates. They went from 88 to 24. So a lot of these committees withdrew a lot of, in this case, with our Ethics and Rules Committee, this is where it pretty much dissolved the committee. And these are something that we're looking at reestablishing, because we feel that the processes could be move quicker, move faster. There could be different times and dates with a lot of these things. But as far as why the Hearings and Appeals Office was created under the executive branch, that would probably be another session along with the Hearings and Appeals Office for them to answer this. But we do have, at this current time, we have one hearing officer who does hear the cases, and we do try to handle a lot of our court appointments on a monthly basis. We handle the cases, the presentation of the investigative cases. We handle order to show causes with our offices. So those are types of hearings that we have, and we do have, like I said, when people are talking about maybe the
Okay,
funding
okay.
investigation. Okay.
One of the thing that I'm having issues is that just by the structure, I walk in and I file a complaint against the president. The next guy walks in, files against a council delegate. Your office is under the legislative. You might pass that his on over here. You might pass mine over there. The possibility that if that person who filed against a council delegate is under the legislative, somewhere it's going to go to the standing committee or the nomination council. There's a possibility that council delegate says, no, 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 don't do it. Because this situation ultimately comes down to one thing, and tell me if I'm wrong. Because everybody's trying to keep a job. And there might be a possibility that people are protecting their jobs. And that is where the judgment call comes in, whether the principle of the law or the letter of the law collapses. There's a difference. The letter of the law is that, okay, A, B, C, D, E. The principle of the law is common sense and a moral judgment, a value judgment. Is this something that merits total attention? Or you can say, no, this is in jurisdiction XYZ, therefore it doesn't happen. There's a real critical point, because I think that might be where the bottleneck of what's going on in either places. A complaint comes in, it stops because legislative has influence. It goes over to executive. Executive has influence. Do you see that as a problem, or am I wrong?
Mr. Nez, this is Albert Benally. All investigator, they hold their standard of conduct and their ethics, because that's what we relied on, and that's how we testify. That we, whatever case, whoever the person that holds the highest ranking office will be treated just the same as that person that came in that the lowest ranking elected official. That issue don't address us, because we we here is to serve what the ethics and rules stands by, and we do, and it goes back to the moral issue of the investigator, and also their standard of conduct, and also the ethical, because we testified. If we violate that, then we may as well just leave the job, because we're done. Because we have all these. The three of us have a extensive law enforcement issue. So we do testify in district court, federal court. We testify in those courts, and the only thing we have is our ethical position, and we can't violate that. If we do violate that, then that's the end of our career. That's
Yeah,
how we've been doing that for the last 20 years plus. So this office does stands. I when I see it and I look at it with my with colleagues, they do have their code of conduct and their ethical position, and
right.
they will once the cases have been assigned. There's no difference who comes in, red, green, blue people that comes in. We will give the maximum the issue will give us the maximum attention that the case deserves and process the
Okay.
case with it. But that's the only way I can answer you that. And the
Yeah,
way
I
the
appreciate
government
that.
design, that's out of our league, out of our issue that was established between the lawmakers. We just
Yeah,
we're just trying to serve the law and protect the people and protect the interests of the Navajo Nation government, because I think we're the last form of defense that we're making people that's serving the government as employee or also as an elected position that they have to be accountable what the oath that they took when they got elected, and we try to remind them that they may have to maintain their standard of conduct. We
yeah,
do a public presentation with all walks. When they ask us, we try to fulfill that schedule for them. That we have two audience, up to 40 audience, but we still give that presentation to the maximum, to our best
yeah.
of our knowledge.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
if we can't answer that question, we will research it and we'll get back with them. And
I
that's how
appreciate
our
that.
rules are.
Jonah, okay, very nice. I'm glad that we talked about the moral compass of, I think that's important. Now, there's one particular situation where we all know the circumstances. The whole nation knows the circumstances. And this is concerning a special prosecutor who turned over the case to ethics and rules and it was dismissed. Do you think, uh, are you able to comment on that?
Mr. Nez, I'm sorry I
Yes.
was on a different call here, but can you repeat that question one more time for me?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought up that you brought up the issue of that you guys have a moral code and a code of conduct, and I appreciate that. Now, there's one that everybody, the entire Navajo Nation, if not the whole United States or the world, knows that there's a situation that really involves a moral standard, really comes down to that's money and action. Um, the, a special prosecutor reported some funds to you, to your office, and it was dismissed. How did that happen?
Mr. Nez, right now on these cases here, we haven't heard the dismissal yet. I understand that they're still under the processes. There was a understanding of the hearing rules,
Mm-hmm.
and this was something that was brought up by the hearing officer with hearings and appeals. So at this time, they're still moving forward with the cases, with the submission of the presentation of the hearing. So
Okay.
with that, that's what that is to my understanding, and I
So,
understand it is going to be public record when it does come into these terms here. So they are available. Go ahead with
okay.
your question.
Okay, so it's not stopped. Well, that's good to hear. And I hope that that value system and code of conduct continues because, a lot of this, you're working on our behalf. And I think, you know, we're just trying to understand how that you guys, like for instance, my chapter, my home chapter, I have no qualms. They were just recently released missing monies. And I'm hearing that throughout the entire Navajo Nation. In most cases, everybody can prove that they're done. But I'm hearing from officials right now that they've gone to you guys and they've been either dismissed, technicality issues. You know, when money is missing, is missing, is missing, is missing. There's no way to describe any other way. So that's where I'm not totally understand how the code of conduct begins to sway a little bit. Am I wrong on that?
Too long.
So in these cases here that you're talking about, when they do, uh, first of all, I think everybody out there listening has to understand we at the office may be seeing it, hearing it, maybe viewing it on social media. However, we need the official intake to be initiated. A lot of the chapters will be out there. You can hear this echoing in all the chapters. We do have community members that actually step up and come to the office and they initiate the investigative processes. In terms of what I'm seeing from the past, the Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules Office has processed and adjudicated successfully on some of these fraud cases. And now you have the individuals, respondents, who were responsible for their behaviors, actions, and decisions, their judgments. They are doing restitution payments back. So in time, we will have have the information posted on our website. These are something that we're formulating right now, even providing the hearings, because I think it's important that the community or even the people of the Navajo Nation, and when we say we're serving at the best interest of the Navajo Nation, these court hearings are open to the public. And that's why we feel posting up the information and getting that information out is going to be the pivotal point here. And hopefully, just like what Mr. Benally said, we're here to provide presentation. There's just the requests coming in to the office. We do have a website. It's Navajo Nation Ethics and Rules. There is an email there. It's centralized, and you'll have all the information there for all of us investigators. So these are just in terms of what we have. So I don't know if that
Yeah,
helps to understand, but we do have to have
that's
the
simple.
initial intake come to the office.
Yeah, that's very nice. I'm glad you're sharing that with us. How many new cases have you received that remain unaddressed?
So back to the administrative staff. Again, we have the 4 investigators, and with me being the interim director, I also look and oversee the operational function of everything. So I'm not just the investigator; I handle the administrative portions of it. So now you can actually say fully we have 3 investigators moving, but I do handle my cases. And for this year, we are at 149 cases. For last year, we were at 179 cases. And we're also looking, when you look at the Ethics and Rules Office, it says we're here to mitigate. And this is where we began to have our
Mm,
staff meetings months ago, and we started to talk about it. You know, Albert has a really great concept when we're talking about a lot of these things, but it comes down to leadership, your moral responsibilities, your integrity, the high
mhm,
standards of these positions. When you're talking about the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branch, comes back down to these terms, and comes back down to education and training. When you're talking about a lot of these functionalities, I think just being wanting to have these positions, such as having a chapter president's position, there's really no collection. So when we go out there and we talk to people on our cases, we'll ask them what brought you to this level, what made you decide to make this decision. And a lot of times you'll hear the people say, my people asked me to run for this office. And then in terms of what they wanted, that's the things I think they need to understand. But we see it as the ethics portion of it. There was really no highlight of that. Now with the new presentation that we have going out, we talk a lot about the ethics. We talk about responsibilities. We talk about leadership. We talk about keynote points that we're seeing as they are developing within our case intakes. And I think that's something for us to be educated. And just like you said, we're the first we're the first line people looking at these governmental agencies, entities, program, departments, and leadership. And we have to question a lot of that stuff. And I'm glad Albert continues to remind us that we're public servants. And that's precisely what it is. We give a lot of time, we offer a lot of assistance. And the bottom line is, like you had highlighted at the beginning, and you tried to point it out to us, yes, we do serve the Navajo Nation and the best interests of the Navajo Nation. That's precisely what it says in our ethics and government law.
Yeah. You have a mandate to protect the Navajo Nation public trust. You work for the people. You don't work for the government. That's the mandate, according to Title II, Section 3241B, a mandate to protect the public trust. And I think that that's where it's really important. And I think to have that moral compass is really, really important. But the thing is that because no matter what you do, it's really going to come down to the percentage of how, when you're working for the people, it's not how many you should refuse, how many you should dismiss. It really should be about how many that you can help the Navajo people to make sure, because your office strictly is to monitor the tribal employees and the elected official. That's it. Central government to all the way down. That's what your office is established for. So based on that, you said you have 149. Are those new? Are those current, ongoing? Are they old? Because that's important, because this goes back to the initial conversation that I'm having, with various people. I'll take my chapter. I know of other chapters. We hear in the newspaper, so-and-so did this, and it's all there. But 2 years later, the same chapter is coming back up. Somebody is not doing their job. Something's happening. And that's why I want to just have you guys understand why, or help us understand why that this is happening, because it all comes down to you guys, ethics. There's no other way we can address this. We have a problem. 4 people serving 400,000 Navajos. It's a problem.
I think we have the same consensus out there. We can agree with you on that. There is a lot of case laws or cases that we have in the load that we intake weekly, and we're just trying to serve what we can at this point. But we will be looking at moving ahead and rebuilding the office to formulate the needs of the Navajo Nation. But in terms of this, it's going to be within a 2-year or perhaps a 5-year outlook in the future for ethics and rules. With a lot of these cases, we still have these parts to our policies and our procedures that we have yet to develop, and that's going to be within our office. And we have the legislative branch offering, the people to help assist in these matters here. So we do see this. And let me give everyone just a broad overview. I always use this because I know factually what's going on. You have, just like you said, we're the police of the governmental law establishment purposes out there. You look at the Navajo Police Department. You have what they call the Internal Affairs Office. You have 6 personnel in there with 1 office specialist. You have 5 investigators out there, which are highly paid, and they have their units moving themselves here and there. But with our office, you have 4 investigators, and we are exempt employees, but we still have the terms of serving as public servants out there. We handle matters after our general operating time, so sometimes you can call the office. We still be there working with the 4 of us because of these cases, and we give a lot of our personal time out there. So a whole lot of these factors play in, but for this Navajo Police Internal Affairs Unit, they only serve 7 programs, and what they investigate is administrative matters within the Division of Public Safety. But you turn around and you look at what ethics and rules has. We have the entire Navajo Nation government that expands to all four corners. You're talking about the Utah, Arizona, New Mexico,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Arizona. Yeah.
See, right there, there's a problem. I mean, it's like, where do we even begin to attack this thing? Now, the other question is this. Let me ask you, if you know how many is current, how many were dismissed?
I don't have that number. We will be looking at posting up our numbers here. Like I said, we're in the position of reestablishing a lot of the functions, the general information that should be out there on the website. So these are something that we're formulating, will be created. Give us time. We may have some numbers when it comes down to presenting before our oversight. Just like any other branches, we have to report to an oversight, but these are general in numbers when it comes down to the operational portion of it. It's not about sharing information on cases. And I just want to be clear, we're not influenced in any way to make any type of decisions on these cases. We, like I said, we give due diligence to our investigative cases, our files, because it's a reflection upon each of us investigators, especially when it comes down to the ethics and rules office. So I don't know if that's going to be clarify a whole lot of the matters, but like I said, we are working at reestablishing. We pretty much have almost a brand new team to this office, and we're excited because we need this information to be out there. We want the public to be able to see this
Mm-hmm.
information.
Excellent.
And we're just trying to be transparent like any other programs out there. And we welcome anybody to the office. We welcomed you to the office when you extended this invitation to us to do the meet and greet in person. So these
Yeah,
are things that we're
I
we're
appreciate
open
that.
to.
Yeah, you guys did invite me, and I do appreciate that. Now, here's also another thing too, is that I don't know if it's your office or Office of Hearing and Appeals, but you guys are kind of brothers and sisters there, uh, or brothers and brothers, or sister and sisters, whichever way. But the thing is this: there's a judge. Can you tell us who that judge is that's been subcontracted out? I don't know if it's under your office or OHA.
Hearing officer Smith.
From from what we know, again, hearings and appeals falls under the executive branch. We don't know the terms or details to the contract, but we do present before the hearing officer, which is going to be our hearing officer, which is Mr. Keith Smith. So that's who we present our cases to in terms of these types of investigations that we present before the hearing.
And that's where the judge comes in. Where does the judge come in? And who is the judge?
Okay, this is Robert. So, in terms
Hi.
of a judge, I mean, the hearing, in this case, the hearing is administrative hearing. So, in this case, based on what's set up in the current law and the current structure, the judge would be considered the hearing officer. In terms of judge, you're talking more like the district court level, or judicial branch, or judicial arm of the government. But in this case, we have our hearing officers who are administrative, there for that administrative purpose. Just to clarify that.
Okay. I appreciate that. Now, one of the things that I keep talking about is because it's really, really, really important because this high level, you guys are like four people stretched to the max. There's got to be something that's got to be installed much better, much greater. And I'm not saying you guys are not doing your job. What I'm saying, well, what I'm saying is this. I think that to hold that much responsibility, something is going to fall through the cracks. I'm not saying it did, I'm sure, but I'm hearing people saying that it has. I'm hearing from the chapter level, I'm hearing from the legislative branch, I'm hearing from all branches. And sorry about that, somewhere along the line, this complaint just doesn't move forward just because it's under, you guys are under legislative and executive branch. Oh, and there's a problem because if this whole situation can get defined and clarified, it's going to help downstream. Somebody comes in, they know that their file is going to work and follow all the way through to having it adjudicated with no judges that are from Colorado, Navajo judges here to adjudicate the situation and to work on behalf. Now, the thing that I'm seeing, I'm hearing this. Your role, you're not working for you're employed by the Navajo people. You're paid with Navajo people's money. Your office was mandated to protect the Navajo people against the elected leaders, against tribal employees. That's not about the people. So when I keep hearing, I think there's a misunderstanding here that could resolve this. It seems like your face is supposed to be facing with us looking at the government, not you standing in front of the government as a gate, uh, for the lack of a better term, please accept this. That you guys appear to be the gatekeeper because if you throw it out, it's a done deal. If you advance it, something might happen. There's a big bottleneck here. How do we resolve this? It's a problem. What do you think is going to solve this problem?
Mr. Nez, this is Albert Benally. Well, we don't make the rules. The rules are made by the government, now the tribal council, and that's the rules. And that's our tools that we have, that we address. These tools that's written within the nomination law. That's what we use to govern the case, whether it's if it's not found or not or been found, there's a cause to adjudicate these cases, because that's what we use to bring that into the court and say this rules has been violated by this area. And if we can't find it, then we can't bring that into the court, because then we're making our own laws, and we don't do that. And because, like I said, the tool is given to us by the nomination and by our oversight, our council delegates. And there's only 17, 17 rules that we use, and also 8 standard of conduct that we use. That's the only
Wow.
tools we got to
That's what I
enforce.
was looking for from the beginning. I wanted to hear the 17 and the 8. What are
Okay,
those?
go ahead. You get the book.
So that's what I'm calling it about the moral compass. What do you use? Is it a technical issue or is it a
Speak
judgment
down the line.
call totally on you?
Okay, this is Robert Jumbo, Mr. Niz. So,
Oh,
in terms of the what Mr. Benally mentioned in terms of what we operate on, I mentioned that we have the Ethics in Government Law, which is under Title II. So within that, we have 17 sections that we use to help with our cases move forward. And if
very
any of
nice.
those,
Okay.
and if
Very
any of
important
those,
information.
yes, and if any of those particular actions or the what's on the intake, if we can pursue that through the what the 17 areas would be. And then on top of that, we also have what's called the standard of conducts. So
Now,
1998.
let's
Oh,
let's clarify this. When you say, is this your conduct or the conduct of the accused? Whose conduct?
okay, let me clarify that. So as far as the standard of conducts right now, it's reflecting all elected officials. So that ties back into our Title 11, the election law. So in terms of what positions are identified as elected positions, that's what we go by with the current election law that we have in place. And then before that, pre 2008, is when it only reflect the standard of conduct was only in regards to the council delegates at that time, which was first established during 1998.
Uh, and what else?
Okay, so the standard of conduct, we got 8 areas that we can reference in terms of the elected officials. And if they violate any of those 8 areas, we do also note that. And it could come down to either a
Okay. See,
restitution. Go ahead,
right.
sorry.
See, that's why it's really important to distinguish because you're talking about that sounds like a checkoff list to me. But the investigators, do you guys, what is your code of conduct?
We are held to our standards of conduct. It's going to fall under the same types of terms when we come down to it. When we come into the office as new employees, we
Ah,
look at the policies, and then we're also binded by a confidentiality statement. So a lot of the information, we will not share that much, but we can offer some examples to these types of scenarios or cases that we have. Again, we're it's going to be something that we're going to be working at when it comes down to our websites and offering this information. So a lot of the information we are willing to give out to the public and gaining these types of things. I know you keep asking about the chapters and how people are saying that their complaint was failed in our system. I don't believe that is what it is. We're just handling cases, and we do have major cases that come to us. They are complex, and sometimes it involves the whole office and the 4 investigators to go out and handle the matter as much as we possibly can. And again, in terms of a 2-year establishment, when we're having to come back and then look at what the needs are for the office here, these are something that we're going to be working at in terms of the 2 to 5 years. So
so
that's where we're at.
am I understanding what you're saying? Just I want to be clear on this so that the general public can know. Although the office has been established since 1980s, you're still in the process of defining the role of the office. You're still defining what your jobs descriptions are. Am I understanding that right or wrong?
Let me clarify that for the listeners out there. It's not learning the process, but we know that there could be different advancements when we're talking about upgrading the processes. When we're looking at establishing different formalities of how we're doing business, these are where your program performance evaluations come in. When people are seeing something that can be improved on, because with the advancement of technology, there's a lot of things that, in terms of what future has to offer, these are what we're trying to do to accommodate these updates. And that's all I'm saying, not to what you're saying about the other matter, but we're just saying that we have to do business better, efficiently, and there are performance merits that we have to look at. And if we have to see improvements in some areas, that's what we're going to begin to move in those types of directions, just so that we can be, people can know that we exist. The Navajo Nation can bring in their complaints, and they can understand what the ethics and rules does and how we're structured. And
Yeah,
that's the basics, just like you had said. We're coming back
yeah.
down to the basics and
So
performance.
go ahead.
So that's all I wanted to add. But we
Yeah.
did say we were going to come down to the hour. I don't know if you got my text message. We are due for another appointment right now.
Okay. All right. Just in closing, I think that my recommendation, and I think that just looking at this right now, the overview, I think your, you know, what I see is that it's not so much the intake problem. There's plenty of problems. It's the execution once it enters your office. I try to establish and ask what it was that you guys use as a guidance system to have these intake. You've talked about moral conduct, and come to find it, you're talking about the accused. And so it's rather confusing. And I think that with 4 people serving the entire Navajo Nation, uh, 149 seems very low. I would be more acceptable to 2,500 cases and probably more than 5,000 dismissed. That's just a top of my head what I'm hearing from the general public. And that's why I wanted to bring this to the table. And then the most important thing is that you work for the people, looking at the government. And that's, I repeatedly heard from you that you work for the government. You work, you're paid by the Navajo people's money, but you work for the people to adjudicate, to accuse, to investigate tribal officials and employees. So, I think that those are very important. And I know that there's a transition going on in your office, and I was hoping to hear that from you guys. But where you said there's a new director coming in next week, and you're the interim director right now. And so there's still a lot of questions, a lot of issues that I haven't even tapped into. So, in closing, I'll give you guys the last word. Just share with the general public what it is that you want them to hear.
So, to all the listeners out there, I know we've been trying to highlight what we have out there with the Navajo Nation government. And what we're going to continue to say is we're public servants to the Navajo Nation. This includes the people of the Navajo Nation. We will hold the best interests of what these cases are as far as these investigations go. And no case goes unheard. No case goes undismissed without the full explanation as to why. We do have, and we have been working, and in terms of numbers in the complaint system, again, everyone is probably seeing a lot of things happening, a lot of viewing on social media. We do need these complaints to be launched within our office. So this is what we have, and I'm going to give it back to Albert just to give his speech when he talks about public servant. This is something that stems out there, and this is going to be for anybody and everybody to hear when he has the last words to say and share.
This is Albert Benally again, Mr. Nez. Uh, like I said, we all come from different type of field uh, as law enforcement officers, and so we do. It's very important to stand by our ethics and our rules, and not fabricating cases or fabricating stories, and we do get the best service that we can possibly give to the people that comes in through our office or through our path, and we do try to do our best, exhaust our means to help that individual, or even help the person to understand us or understand the government. One of the difficult problems that I face is our government. It goes by the speed of a snail, and that's part of the system. It's been there since day one, probably, but that's some of the handicaps that we have within the government system and the way the speed that they operate. So people do get impatient. People do get needed the right service, but that's the other service of the government. And we, like I said to you, that we do our best trying to serve the public. And that will be my last statement on it.
Are we done? Are you done? Hello?
Yes, that'll conclude our statements.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here with us. And so I know you guys got places to go and things to do. So I will release you guys and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So go on now. Uh, 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 uh. Oh, little da ya. I think we saw, you know, you can tell that they're trying to stall uh, and prolong the interview. There's kind of a real interesting scenario. I've had conversations with them leading up to the um, and leading up to the interview. Um, I try to go in cold. I try to talk to give the least amount of information, but a lot of things, is very clear. I it is nearly impossible to get into specific of the cases because the automatic response is going to be real simple. We're going to say it's under investigation and therefore we can't comment on it. So that pivots this entire interview into another dimension. And that dimension is exactly what you witness. And that is that, yes, we know about the $24 million. Yes, we know about the sexual allegation. Many, unfortunately, and one of them being was that allegation with the president and the vice president, and then the vice president and that guy, and then now uh, Nab, Nabak, the special prosecutor, he actually went in there and gave the information to, and you heard the process. And so the angle that I tried to get and tried to have them say was, and I think many of you listeners, is to try to establish that foundation of exactly what their roles are. Okay. And do they understand it? And I ask these questions so that they can give us the information and have them establish that. If somebody asks me that question about what it means to be an artist, well, certainly I go in there and say, okay, da 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 da. You need a brush, canvas, easel, um, you know, oil paints, linseed oil, paint thinner, and it's going to take me an X amount of hours to do an oil painting. I'll give you that. What are my moral compasses? My moral compass is to make sure that I do one hell of a job on my paintings. And why? And my subject matters is of integrity, and it's about the Navajo Nation culture. There's a solid foundation. I expect all and everybody's job from the president's office, council delegates, judges. And when I say this is really important, because the best places that I remember, the ones that absolutely operated by the letter of the law was the dorm aides. You know what I'm talking about. They didn't care if they were related to you. They didn't care if you were Navajo and Navajo. They didn't care how old you were. They treated you like nothing. They made you into what it is now, like a prisoner, like a mini prisoner. And they applied the letter of the law. If you took that same scenario and applied the principle of the law, the same application of that law would mean dilad ibn and then, although you know you're supposed to get up in the morning, do your chores, stand in line and go to the thing, you ease off and say, you know what, I want to gain public trust because I know the right thing to do is that these boarding school kids are here at boarding school. I don't need to abuse them. I don't need to apply corporal punishment to these children. They're somebody's children, somebody's son, somebody's daughter. See, that's the difference. Somebody having emotional intelligence. And it really comes down to one thing, common sense. You look, and I ask you people to go back and listen to the interview because I know I'm reading your texts on here. Your texts are saying, let's get into the specifics. I can, but their immediate outlet is going to be, it's being adjudicated. And there's nothing to talk about. So what I wanted to get was to ask them what it is that they are